Welcome to Everyday Counseling, a podcast about understanding emotional patterns as they show up in everyday life. In this episode, we'll cover why some people keep having the same arguments for years, what actually interrupts repeating conflict patterns, and why understanding the cycle is not the same as changing it. You can usually tell when an argument is old, not by the topic, but by the speed. The reaction comes too quickly. The tone changes too fast. Both people already know where the conversation is going. Sometimes someone even says it out loud. Here we go again. That sentence tells you something important. The conflict is no longer just about the situation. It becomes a pattern. And patterns create prediction. You already expect the other person to misunderstand you. They already expect you to react a certain way. So both people arrive emotionally prepared before the conversation has properly begun. That preparation is what keeps the cycle alive. You see this in the long-term partnerships a lot. One person raises an issue carefully, the other immediately hears criticism. Their tone changes. The first person now feels dismissed and pushes harder. Within minutes, both are defending themselves instead of listening. Neither person planned for that to happen, but both recognize the pattern instantly. With siblings, it can happen in seconds. A certain comment, a familiar look, a joke that lands slightly wrong. Suddenly, you're not reacting as adults anymore, you're reacting from an old position in the dynamic. With parents, repeating conflict often comes from expectation. One person wants recognition, the other wants appreciation. Neither says it directly. So the conversation stays practical on the surface while emotionally becoming more loaded underneath. At work, repeating conflict often becomes procedural. You avoid certain colleagues, emails become colder, meetings feel tense before they even start. The emotional pattern starts shaping behavior outside the conflict itself. What keeps these cycles alive is not memory alone, it's anticipation. You stop entering conversations openly, you enter defensively. And once defense appears early, curiosity disappears very quickly. This is why breaking the cycle requires something uncomfortable. Someone has to respond differently before the other person does. Not perfectly, just differently. This might mean asking a question instead of making an accusation, slowing the pace of the conversation, naming what is happening in the moment. For example, I think we're falling into the same argument again. That sentence can change direction completely because it moves both people from reaction into awareness. Another important shift is separating intention from impact. Many repeating conflicts continue because people argue over intent. I didn't mean it that way, but the other person is talking about impact. It still affected me that way. When people feel forced to defend intent, listening ceases. It stops out the window. When impact is acknowledged first, tension often drops. Breaking conflict patterns also means tolerating unfamiliarity. If someone usually pushes, they may need to pause more. If someone usually withdraws, they may need to stay engaged slightly longer. Both feel unnatural at first. That discomfort is often a sign the pattern is actually changing. And change is usually quieter than people expect. Not dramatic breakthroughs, not perfect communication, just small interruptions in an old cycle. A slower reply, a softer tone, a different question, a pause where escalation normally lives. Those moments matter more than people realize because once a repeat conflict changes direction even briefly, both people experience something new. Possibility. Join me in the next episode. We'll explore what happens when conflict is avoided completely and why the absence of arguments does not always mean the presence of closeness.